What's up, everybody? Welcome back to This American Ride podcast, where we talk about topics that affect you, the average American. So yeah, man, what's up? First episode of the podcast. It's crazy.
So we're actually doing this, huh?
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for a hot minute.
For a while. I think we had a logo. It's probably the only thing I've ever had a logo done since before I started it, and then we sat on that for months.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, obviously like the intro, welcome to This American Ride podcast. I'm George. I'm here with Bert. We are no strangers to social media, I guess, at this point. It's been, we started a YouTube channel, how long ago now?
June of 2019.
June of 2019.
4 years.
So yeah, it's been a bit of a minute, but it's been a ride. I'll say that.
It's been a ride. It's
no twist on this.
Yeah, no pun intended, right?
I know. So, but it's funny, YouTube, and I feel like we followed this whole niche on YouTube where it's like you need to focus on what you focus on, because otherwise you will just die in YouTube algorithm misery and never be pushed or anything like that. So we've been good about that for the most part.
Yeah, we have. We've stuck to it.
We have, and sticking to it and sticking to a niche, sticking to a genre, whatever you want to call it, I think has kind of landed us here at this podcast.
Absolutely.
Because why not talk about and discuss everything else that we want to talk about, and this is it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, what I've learned over these 4 years of YouTube and sticking with that niche that we're in over there was that I had a lot of other things I wanted to talk about, but just we didn't feel it was appropriate to talk about a lot of them over there. So it kind of got us brainstorming on this idea. Well, why not do a podcast and talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, no rules. So I mean, we have I don't know if I'd consider it a successful YouTube channel. And we'll link it below. It's Baggers and Brews on YouTube, but it's not an unsuccessful YouTube channel.
If you measure it by our original goals, it's extremely successful.
That's funny. That's very true. I mean, we didn't really have any expectations of that rolling in there, but there is a lot of stuff we want to talk about, and a lot of stuff that I feel like even we've tried to branch out a little bit on that channel into, doing beer reviews and that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And even though they do well by the standards of the beer review genre, they still don't do as well as our videos that get pushed out to our audience do.
Yeah. Well, that's a fact.
And I mean, and I think ironically, a lot of what we want to talk about on this podcast, a lot of our audience would be interested in.
They would. I feel like a lot of it. And just to kind of be clear on that, we want to talk about anything from politics to, I don't know, what truck is best to tow your RV with. I mean, anything. Like we think of so many things. Whiskey. I mean, we're Baggers and Brews, so it's kind of, but we like whiskey. So it's a little weird you can't just start, talking about whiskey on the Baggers and Brews channel because it doesn't really go. But I do feel like a lot of those people that are following us and watching us and subscribe to us on YouTube definitely are interested in a lot of different things.
Yeah. But
at the same time, didn't really feel like it was the right thing to do to start talking about our politics, for example. Mm-hmm. Because people came and subscribed because our content was about motorcycles and beer. So didn't want to alienate anybody. But here, going in right now, letting we're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about. And our politics you might not like, so maybe you won't watch, and that's okay.
That's it. And I mean, it's obviously not going to be all of that. I mean, we have lots of things that we want to talk about. Just living life in this country that we live in. Yeah. Which obviously politics can be a significant piece of, but
plays a big part. Yeah.
So can being in your mid-40s. Working careers.
You're in your late 40s, buddy.
Yeah, right. I'm in my late 40s. Being married, long-term marriages. There's a lot of stuff that it's kind of an endless amount of.
It really is if you think about it, and I think if we started writing down different things we wanted to talk about, we could fill quite a few pages.
Yeah, fill quite a few podcasts, and I think maybe that's probably the that's probably the point, you know.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to the most about this?
Exactly what we just talked about. A little more freedom to go wherever we want to go with it, and not limit it to the motorcycles. I mean, that's really what I'm most looking forward to, and just having conversations. I mean, we have a lot of good conversations just when we're not even filming. You know, like just in the garage before filming for YouTube, or just when we hang out with the wives, whatever. We have a lot of good conversations, and I think the cool thing about this that the people listening will benefit from is that we don't always have the same opinion on things at all. I mean, we agree on a lot of things in life and a lot of different topics, but we also don't agree just as much on things. So I think it gives everybody a good perspective, and they'll always have someone to like and someone to hate on this channel.
Well, and you know, the other interesting thing is a lot of things that we do agree on, we have like different levels of agreement. If that's
Yeah, so there's topics we agree on, but we don't agree on how we agree on them.
You know, or you know, you might be, you know, feel more strongly about something that I agree with, but I don't feel that strongly, you know, about it, and vice versa. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I think that aspect kind of showed up on some of our talking head videos,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, on Baggers and Brews, and I think that makes for, you know, good watches for the people and just good dialogue and the comments and things like that. So it should be good.
Yeah. And again, like going into this, I mean, I'm approaching this from the same aspect of approaching, you know, YouTube when we started YouTube. I don't have any real expectation of it. I want to obviously do a good quality podcast. I'm no stranger to audio. I've been a musician and had audio, you know, experience most of my life. So I'm definitely more comfortable here with a microphone in front of my face, even though we do have a webcam set up that's going to give, you know, people a video feed of this on YouTube as well. So make sure while I'm here, shameless plug, you go over to YouTube. If you're catching this on one of the podcast platforms, you can also catch this on This American Ride on YouTube.
That's right.
And if you like to watch video podcasts and whatnot, you can watch it there. So
yeah, why don't you? We kind of just did that, but just the plan for this podcast is, you know, both going to be on where podcasts are, right? Which
is going to be Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Where else? Definitely someplace else. There's 3 of them, I feel like, and YouTube.
Yeah,
I forget what the third
You
one.
kind of researched this a little more than I did.
Yeah, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I feel like
was there anything with Google?
The 2. There is Google Podcast. There is like a Google Podcast name, and there was a 4th one that I was just listening to, the Sean Ryan Show, which is another podcast that I've kind of gotten into. I don't know if you've listened to that one.
Yes, absolutely.
He is this real like calm demeanor to him in his podcast with his guests. It's pretty cool. But there is another podcast that he was saying, another site, and I forget the name of that is actually going away. And I feel like that's the second one to go away. So it seems like the podcast arena is kind of consolidating down to some of the bigger players.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, this is probably one of the few podcasts where the guys hosting it aren't like famous for something or former special operations, which I'm not. I love those guys. I watch them all. But kind of as the title goes, we're just average, normal, everyday American, working class Joes, just living in this world here in America and wanting to talk about things that affect us.
So there's a lot too. I mean, there is a lot. We said that a couple times. But what other podcasts are you listening to right now to give people an idea? I think you've got a few that you have on your list.
I listen to a lot, but it does, you know, I just said that it kind of, a lot of the ones I listen to are a lot of the former special forces guys. I listen to Cleared Hot with Andy Stumpf. I've been listening more to the Sean Ryan one. I listen to anything really that Tim Kennedy's on. I really like Tim Kennedy. I think he's a pretty awesome dude. So anything he's on, and he has a what's his podcast called? Something Violence. I forget what it's called, but his podcast. I listen to some sports podcasts because obviously I'm a huge football fan. So I'll listen to some sports stuff. Mike Glover everything he does, I'm a big fan of.
Okay.
He's another one. He's got, and I can't even name them all because he's got like a million different things he's doing.
All right.
Yeah, those are like the main ones that every time their stuff comes out, I watches, and then there's others that I sprinkle in there.
Mm-hmm.
I watch a lot of RV stuff. I watch a lot of motorcycle stuff.
Podcasting wise.
Podcasting wise,
And
well,
YouTube
yeah,
stuff.
like RVs. There's quite a few podcasts for RV.
Okay.
Not quite as many for the motors. Well, not that I listen to for the motorcycle scene, but and you?
So, I mean, I feel like I never listened to podcasts until Between Two Wheels podcast came on, and like you got me listening to Between Two Wheels, and we listened to that, and then those guys kind of went their separate ways, and I think Roadblock moved, and that kind of broke up, and then there's Motorcycle Men in New Jersey and Five Dirty Bikers, obviously, that I caught, and beyond that, I never like. There's a few that I catch here and there, but I don't really get into. Like Total Confession, The Office Ladies, Jenna Fisher, and one of the other girls from The Office do this podcast where they break down every episode of The Office and talk about the behind the scenes and their memories of filming The Office.
Really?
And it is, I gotta tell you, it's insane because it is probably funnier than the show, and it makes the show funnier when you go back and watch it. So you have to be an Office fan. It's kind of a cult following. But then when we started talking about doing podcasts, I was like, I need to listen to more. So I fired up some Joe Rogan. I used to catch Joe Rogan on TikTok here and there.
The podcast that all podcasters aspire to be. Yeah.
That's it. And I learned a lot about that guy. I never knew he was a stand-up comedian. I mean, I knew him from Fear Factor, obviously, but I didn't know he started
Really?
his startup
Yeah,
and stand-up. But he's had some really, really funny guests on there, and as of like the past couple of weeks, I've been just peeling back the layers of the Sean Ryan Show, which is just some of those episodes hit you pretty hard. I mean, he goes into some really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So
Deep.
yeah, the one he released this week is scary stuff, but it's
See, and what you're talking about, those are the type of things that I want to dig deeper into and talk
Yeah.
about ourselves, because
Yeah.
those are the things that interest me.
yeah.
But no, I'm really excited for all of that. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, listen, we just wanted to get a pilot out here, kind of let you know, what we were doing, what this podcast is going to be about, and hopefully it interests you. If it does interest you, why don't you just give us a follow us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, and follow us on YouTube, follow us on both, wherever you like to consume your content, as they would say.
Yeah, it seems like YouTube is a big spot nowadays for podcasts. I know it wasn't initially, but I feel like a lot of people are there.
I feel like it's a big market, and I feel like Spotify now is tapping into the video podcast, so you can upload video podcasts to Spotify. So when you're watching Sean Ryan's show, he's uploading that video podcast. Rogan's uploading a video podcast. So it's,
Now, a lot of those, well, almost all of those podcasts have guests.
Yes. Will we have guests?
That's the question.
I don't see why not. I mean, with technology now, we can have on, whoever we want. I mean, you can video stream anybody into a podcast and record it.
True.
We have some local people that probably would be, a good time to have on here as well.
I could think of it.
So yeah. So the studio is my office right now. So I don't have it painted yet, but it will be painted. And we gotta spruce it up a little bit. But this desk is the George Command Center here.
See that. It's funny because we're usually recording at my house.
Yes, in the basement.
Because the Baggers and Brews video studio is in my basement.
Yep.
So now the podcast studio is over here. Interesting.
So, it's interesting, and I have left what I have left of my audio equipment that I didn't sell off after I decided I was not playing out and being in a band anymore. So I have some of my stuff.
You did have a lot of stuff. I don't know if you've given any thought to this, but I think we have an avenue that could be really interesting as well.
Oh.
and that's we have two wives who have a lot of opinions as well.
Endless amount of opinions.
So, I mean, I'm sure there's some topics that we could get into that would probably benefit from having female point of view.
And we have the bandwidth to record with that many people. So it's we're fortunate to be able to start this without laying out a bunch of money, and that's kind of how we're getting it going so quick, because much to people's surprise, we do not make a ton of money on YouTube.
Yeah, to say the least. But you know what, man? I mean, as small as our channel is over there on YouTube, I mean, we make enough to kind of fund the channel. So
yes,
that's actually, better than a lot of folks who are trying to do it. So I can't really complain, and it's just getting better slowly. So hopefully, I mean, this is another avenue, and hopefully we can get our brew crew and all those over there that are supporting us at the Baggers and Brews channel to come over and sub to This American Ride right off the bat, so that we can go ahead and get monetized.
They changed that
right away.
You don't need that many people on YouTube.
Now it's less, but
anymore.
we still need a few. Still need more than we have at this point in time.
I think we're at 4 subscribers. I looked at currently, and that's got to be probably myself and you and you.
I don't know who else who else would be involved in that.
I don't even know. I looked up. I was like, oh, we got like 3 or 4 subscribers. How'd that happen? Holy cow!
But hopefully, when we pop this one out, we can get those numbers up quickly.
Hell yeah!
So, other than telling people that your name was George, is there anything else you'd like, background wise, to give people a little idea who the heck they're listening to?
So background-wise, where do we start? Do we start at the beginning? I don't know where we start. It's always the question.
It is tough. Where do you start? I was a small child once.
I was a young boy.
Also forget, like
here in the Pine Barrens.
So here before we get into that. So I know in the podcast world, you can pretty much say anything you want.
Oh.
How does that fall in the YouTube podcast world?
I don't know.
The funny thing is, I know.
I mean, we're just 2 dudes talking. So if we want to talk about guns at 15 minutes into a podcast,
not even. Yeah, guns, but language. But see, I'm trying to think of. I listened, to Andy Stumpf and his Cleared Hot, and they pretty much say whatever they want to say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure he's monetized.
I'm sure he is. And YouTube monetization, podcast monetization obviously works a little bit different than YouTube monetization, but you can look at appropriate ads and you kind of have more control, I feel like, over some of the ads that go on there, and or you can control audiences that ads are targeted at, and that kind of controls the ads indirectly. But YouTube is what it is. YouTube is going to basically show people what they cracking open another beer, another treehouse.
It's funny, you got to have these mics in your grill to talk, but they pick up everything on the other side of the house.
They pick up stuff that's like faint and far away, but to get good audio, you got to be up on them. So
I will be cracking. It'll be making another noise here in a second.
Crack it open some treehouse.
Whatever you were talking about.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just I'm an average dude. I grew up in New Jersey, and I went to
born in New Jersey.
Born in New Jersey, yeah. I was born. I was actually born in Trenton. Ironically enough, my parents lived in this little area of Trenton called the Burg, which was the short for Chambersburg, which was the old Italian section of Trenton, which has since become the new non-Italian section of Trenton.
I've been to Trenton.
And later in life, I actually had the opportunity to work and actually be, management at the hospital that I was born at, which is now kind of shut down and, become an eyesore because it's in the middle of the city of Trenton. But yeah. So born in Trenton, my parents moved when I was about 2 down to this little town called Browns Mills, New Jersey. All roads lead to Browns Mills, and I would always tell people. Seems like it's like they're just sucking me back in. I can't get away from Browns Mills, but I always tell people, well, I'm from Country Lakes.
Yeah, try to differentiate, kind of distance yourself from the Mills.
I'm not from Browns Mills, man. I'm from Country Lakes, and I don't know. I don't think Country Lakes was any better or any worse than Browns Mills for the most part. I mean, it was all the same kids, and we all went to the same schools. And I think a cool thing about that town, and when I grew up, when we moved there, it had no McDonald's. It had probably 15 bars, 18 churches, and at the time, 2 stoplights. So
yeah, you were there before I was.
Yeah. So when I went to school, when I went to pre-first, I guess you would call it, I had the opportunity, and I was one of the last generations of people like in that town that got to go to the Little Red Schoolhouse, which was basically, it wasn't a 1-room schoolhouse. It was, I think, a 5-room schoolhouse. But a cool thing in life, because not a lot of people get to go to a schoolhouse that was built in like the 1700s or whenever that was built, or early 1800s, I feel like. So kind of a cool thing. The beauty of that is I still get to drive by that building every once in a while, so it's kind of cool that they've left it there and they've restored it. It's not a school anymore; it's offices for the educational department, but kind of neat. And went to a high school that was, I don't know, probably a little bit below average high school experience, I feel like. We went to the same high school, so
yeah. So it's a high school from a town outside of military base, and that's pretty much kind of how they are. You get a real mix of all the different classes of life and people from all over the place. And ours was it was the Army high school where the Army kids went from Fort Dix, and that's just kind of what you got. It's never they're never the high end.
No, and
not expensive, but the rich kids aren't in those type of schools when you're outside of a military base. Those towns never tend to be
outside of military bases. So, and I mean, not that the town was terrible. I mean, but
there's better towns.
There's better towns. There certainly are, but it's how do I say it? It's like being a kid and growing up. I guess in the suburbs. I wouldn't necessarily call it the country. I mean, it was more country than a suburb of Philadelphia. You know what I mean? It was more country than like Levittown, Philadelphia, which is a suburb. But it's you were infused via the military by a lot of city kids. And that was it was definitely a different dynamic. There was a lot of, there was a huge cultural mix there.
Oh yeah, all races.
I feel like the Army more so than Northern Burlington, which would have been our kind of down the street, kind of crosstown rival high school, which was the Air Force high school.
Right.
I feel like they were 2 very different vibes for schools, because Northern Burlington was like farm kids and Air Force kids, Air Force brats, So, but after that, I guess 4-year college wasn't in the cards for me. I didn't have, I guess I didn't have parents that had like the wherewithal to kind of financially, put that together or understand loans or what it was. So I wound up community college, and I went down the list of majors at our local community college. People don't realize this is how I wound up here. It's kind of funny, and I'm looking at these majors because I haven't always been financially minded or financially motivated. I mean, it's never good to be like completely financially motivated, but money is one of those things that you can't leave home without it. You don't have to chase it, but you can't pay your bills without it. And I kind of went down the list of majors at the college, and I said, what can I do where I can actually graduate from this college and make a living? And make a living living wherever I had to live or wanted to live or needed to live or knew what it was that I wanted to do. And landed on nursing. So became a nurse, got a job at a local hospital. They helped pay for it. And that was it, man. Got to be resourceful.
Okay, Fokker.
That was it. I started in housekeeping, man. I went from housekeeping to being a secretary to when we graduated nursing school, they were like, peace, we don't need you here. Go work someplace else. And wound up working back in Trenton. And, it was a cool ride. Nursing was the thing. I was never like, one of these people that aspired to be nurses their whole life. So I feel like have the love of the profession. I like the adrenaline of the profession more than I liked, the helping of people, because it was always, I said, you always help people when you're a nurse, but yeah, it's debatable. It's debatable sometimes how much we really help people who are sick. It's, I feel like everybody's like, oh, the cancer rates are so high. Well, we're keeping people alive. We're fixing that heart disease. So keep people alive long enough, they're going to get cancer. It's just one of those things. So I don't know how much of actually helping people we do. We do help them live longer, definitely. But that was it. And, one day I met this guy at a group of people recruited me over to St. Francis. And then I met this guy who was in medical device sales, and he was wearing like $2,000 suits and driving a Porsche and had an airplane. And I was like, well, maybe there's hope. So I was like, that's what I want to do. And it took me a number of years to get into the medical device industry, but it's given me a good career. I've been in it for, I don't know, over 20 years. And it's been a good ride. If I had it to do all over again, would I have gone to college to be a nurse and done all this stuff? Probably not.
It's interesting how that works, right?
Probably not. I feel like, I probably should have joined the Air Force and like made some kind of a career out of that, or better yet, I always loved boats, joined the Coast Guard, or gone that route. And you never think about that when you're, 18 years old and you're playing in a band and playing in bars and chasing girls and doing all the things that, 18 and 19-year-olds do. When you tend to think about not making that decision is when you see your friends who are in their mid-40s who are retiring and chasing their second passion in life, or doing whatever it is that, that they're doing. So you don't, I don't know. That's when you look at the decision and be like, probably should have maybe done life differently. But I have a great life. I don't have any regrets in that fact. If life might have been very different had I made those choices. So, it's not all the being in the medical device industry isn't all the glory that I thought it was ever going to be.
Pays the bills, right?
It does. It does. How about you?
Pays the bills. And just, so people kind of know, we talked about Browns Mills, but that is in New Jersey. We are in the northern, southern portion of New Jersey. We are definitely in South Jersey, but we are not on the real South. There's some spots in South Jersey that are you think you're in Alabama.
Yeah, but a dang. I like to call it Jerseyadelphia. I know you hate everything Philly, but it kind of is Jerseyadelphia. It's it's a suburb.
So let me wet the whistle real quick.
Ooh, here we go.
So, unlike you, I was not born in New Jersey, although I do consider myself from New Jersey because my other option I don't really like. But I was an Army brat, born in Killeen, Texas, which is one of those little towns right outside of a military base, which is Fort Hood, which is technically where I say I was born. Fort Hood, but I was
really Fort Hood.
Yeah, Fort Hood, Texas. My dad was stationed there. He's an Army guy. Bounced around. We went from there. We were out of there before I was 1, from what I understand. I don't remember it, but that's what I was told. Little short stay in Kansas. Think that was when then my dad was like headed off to Korea for like a year or something like that. So we ended up back in Maine, where my father's from. Stayed there for a little bit. Then we ended up, he was stationed here in Jersey at Fort Dix. Was there a few years. I have 2 older sisters, so we were there. They started school there. I did not start school there. We then ended up moving to Vermont, where he had a short stint as an Army recruiter for a couple of years. That's where I started school. That's my first recollection of school. And then he got stationed in Germany. So he went over there, and my family, my mom and my two sisters, we ended up moving to Perth Amboy with her family, her mom, until my dad could find housing for us over there. So we were there for a little while, and I had to go to school in Perth Amboy.
That had to be awesome.
Yeah, I think my first day of school, I had a knife pulled on me.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Did not enjoy that at all. It was miserable, but we weren't there very long. And then we ended up over in Germany for a couple of years. And then when my father was getting his last station, from what I remember, he chose to come back to Fort Dix because, family was close by. His parents, my mom's parents, were in the area instead of, I believe, the option of Hawaii. So
we can't all be winners.
So that's when I really came back to Jersey. That was like 1985. So in case you guys didn't realize, you're talking to like two guys that are almost 50, Gen Xers.
Close to it.
Yeah, so went to the same, high school that George talked about. Big into football, played football there, loved football. My passion and dream was to, keep playing football. Was gonna go to college, big college, play football. Didn't really have good guidance and leadership in that aspect, and didn't know what I was doing when I became a senior, and I had all these schools reaching out to me, and I had lots of schools reaching out, and thought I was going to go play big time Division I football, and I ended up because I didn't have my coach, who was back then the coaches didn't really help very much, like they didn't really, or at least ours didn't, and I thought I was going to go to East Carolina. They were like kind of a up and coming school back then in the early 90s. And put all my eggs in that basket, and kind of told, like an idiot, I shouldn't have said anything, but I told other schools that were interested in me that, I made my decision, I was going there. And then I get a call one day that they had one scholarship left, which is what they had basically promised to me already. And they decided to go with a hometown kid who was basically me, but he was just a hometown kid. Same grades, same skill level, all that stuff. But he was from, the town that East Carolina is in. And I was like, oh, crap, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
No idea what to do at that point. So at that point, the coach, thankfully stepped in and helped me a little bit. And, he could have got me into Rutgers, and I did not want to go to Rutgers. My sister went to Rutgers, and I didn't want to go to Rutgers. So ended up at Rowan, a small Division III school. At that time, it was a college. It wasn't even a university, in southern New Jersey, Glassboro. And they had just come off of their first ever championship appearance, which I didn't know any of this because I knew nothing about them. I mean,
they were like Glassboro State 2 years before that.
They were
I think
Glassboro State. They had just changed to Rowan University when Henry Rowan donated like $100 million or something to them, and so they changed the name of the school. So ended up going there, and my thought process at the time was, I'll go there, I'll play a year, and then I'll transfer to the big school that I always wanted to go to. Well, I loved it there, so I loved it there. I had a great football experience there. We had a really good team there, and
you might have had, and probably, I don't know, you probably wouldn't say this, but you might have had one of the greatest offensive lineman careers, well, definitely in the history of Rowan University, but possibly, of the college. I mean, you hold a record that will probably never be broken.
So I have, I played, and so now it's debatable because I was talking to the current coach who was there when I was there, and he claims there's one guy who has one more game started than me there, which I don't know if I believe him. But yeah, I started 52 consecutive games there. I redshirted my first year, and then I ended up playing and started for 4 straight years and played in 3 national championships. Lost all 3. The Buffalo Bills of the Division III level. But yeah, played there, had an awesome time there, loved my college experience. Honestly, did not dedicate nearly enough time to my education there, as looking back, and now that I have 2 kids, starting or already in college and hoping that they do a lot more effort in the scholastic arena than I did.
But that's a guidance thing too, because and not to put this on anybody else, but it's like I mean, you didn't have parents who knew that. Your parents didn't go to college. Like my parents, I was the first person in my immediate family, and being my grandparents, my mother, all her brothers, everybody. I was the first one of that batch to graduate from college.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had a very fun college experience because I didn't have parents breathing down my neck saying, "What are your grades and how are you doing? And are you wasting this money?" So, yeah, wish I would have done better, but again, I went because I wanted to play football. I got good enough grades to play football, continue playing football, and had an awesome career there. And like I said, within a year of being there, I knew the thought of transferring somewhere else was gone because I loved it there. So I can't complain about that. I had an awesome time and finished up there, and then I went for criminal justice.
Okay.
I don't know what I thought I was going to do with that.
You should want to be a teacher.
I mean, yeah, in hindsight 2020, I definitely would have done what so many of my friends and teammates did. But I think it was one of those things where I went there and didn't know what I wanted to do, as most kids at 17, 18 don't. Mm-hmm. And they want you to pick a major, and I'm like, okay, and just that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll be a corrections officer. I have no idea why I picked that.
It's a possibility.
So picked that and rode that out, but was never. I mean, halfway through, I knew I wasn't going to do anything with that. I wasn't going to be a lawyer, and I didn't want to be a cop. So like, what else was there?
It's not only that. It was hard when we graduated, and people don't understand. Like in that late '90s era, it was hard to become a cop if you weren't coming out of like a 4-year military stint where you were coming home from the Gulf.
Yeah,
I mean that's the reality of it. Is it was hard to become a cop if you weren't a veteran. Like you really had to know somebody, and it's much different than it is now. Like the state police are recruiting. The thought of becoming a state trooper when we were of age to become state troopers was just ridiculous. Like it just wasn't going to happen.
Well, you had along with them wanting so many of those veterans, you did have to have the 4-year degree.
Yeah.
To be a state trooper in Jersey, and that's what a lot of the guys that were in that major were aspiring to do. And
how many of them actually became state troopers? I wonder.
No idea.
I mean, I know you have one buddy who became a cop in Cherry Hill, obviously.
Yeah, local, and that wasn't even. He didn't go. He went to school for like physical therapy or something like that. So that just kind of happened. But yeah, so once I wrapped that up, I went through a handful of crappy jobs. As a young 20-something, trying to figure out what I was going to do because I came out of college with no clue what I was going to do. Couple crappy jobs, and ended up getting, ended up dating my wife, who also went to high school with us, and was a friend in high school. We were, close friends, but never dated, and ended up, kind of both coming back home to our parents' houses after failed relationships, from college, and hooked up and started hanging out, and the next thing was history.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. Started dating. Didn't date long before I proposed, and got married and had kids, and now I've been spending the last 20 years raising a family.
Yeah, but now it's like you're not yet 50, you're 40, 48. You start 48, I think?
I'll be 48.
You'll be 48
this year.
Yeah. Kids are about done. I mean, kids are never done, but they are about to be not living with you every day, going to college. Like life is about to change for you guys.
Yeah, I hope so. Hopefully. No, I mean they're going to be in college. They're obviously still going to need us for things, but we're definitely getting a little freedom here come September when they're both back at school. Looking forward to that. Yeah, but no, but the one little thing I left out is like during that time having crappy jobs, I lucked into a job working over on the base as a contractor with the KC-10 program over here, and I've been doing basically working government contract stuff for the last 20 years, and it's been pretty cool. I met a lot of cool people, and a lot, so many of them being veterans, and that's kind of why I have, not why, but it's a big part of why I'm like such a patriotic dude and into our military and our veterans, and think the world of our veterans. So,
yeah, I mean, it's easy. I feel like maybe it's different for us because we grew up around that. You grew up around a military base. I feel like life is a little bit different. Whenever something touches you, I feel like you look at that, very, very differently. Yeah, a lot of my father was a vet. A lot of his friends were vets. And he worked over on the base, so we were always there around, young active duty and everything else. And I had my father on one shoulder, like join the Air Force, kid. They stay in hotels. Join the Air Force. And I had my grandfather on the other side, who was like second wave, Normandy, hit the beach probably like 11:30, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, second wave, and he's like, whatever you do, don't join the damn military.
That was my dad. I remember him telling me, don't join the Army. They don't take care of you when you're done. Like I think he loved his military service. I think when he told me that, and I was in that high school age, it was when he was done and starting to get a little sneak peek at how they treat you once you're done.
Yeah.
So he was like, don't do it. But I'll be honest with you, I really don't have regrets in life about I made a million mistakes. I think we all have. I don't have any regrets other than not joining up when I was done at Rowan.
Yeah.
After 9/11
and
all that.
It's one of those things.
It's
not a regret because you have an awesome life and you've got Carolyn, you've got kids.
It would have changed everything.
It would have changed literally everything. It is exactly right. Had I joined the Coast Guard or had I joined the Air Force, it would have completely changed everything.
Yeah.
Did I make a bad decision by doing that? No, but I feel like when you get down the line in life a little bit, you kind of start to look at those decisions and you're like,
Yeah.
what if, and not like, not in a hateful way, not in a regretful way, but just kind of in a what if way.
Yeah. But now, like you said, you obviously don't have, you have pets. You have children. Nope. Mine are flying the coop, and I have all this time for YouTube and podcasts and traveling. And hopefully going to live my best life now.
Your life is, you're getting everybody out of the house, and Stacy and I are getting ready to add somebody into the house.
I still could get there. Who knows?
You don't. What's funny is, you don't know. And what we're talking about is my mom. Like, we're trying to get the planets aligned and get everything and all the ducks in a row to get, my mom to come live with the two of us. And we're fortunate enough to have a house that can accommodate that. But you don't know. Like, you have two old parents.
Yeah.
The difference
so
is,
does she.
And so does she.
Oddly, we both still have both of our parents.
Yeah.
Which I think at our age sometimes is not.
It's an anomaly.
That normal.
It's an anomaly.
My father's not in great health.
No.
But he's been hanging on for.
Well, her father's had a few bumps in the road too, so it's not like. It's it's unusual. I think at the age of 50, it's not the normal to have both parents at the age of 50. Coming into the age of 50, late 40s. But I mean, it could happen. I mean, you were fortunate enough that you have two other sisters, one of which probably would step up to the plate, and
Oh, she was already nominated.
Yeah. So, you have that Carolyn situation. I don't know it as well, but I would think that that's probably going to be Carolyn.
Yeah, probably.
So,
yeah,
knowing her, I mean, because she is the one in her family that kind of steps up to the plate and continually steps up to the plate. So
she has 3 siblings, and
she does.
Well, I already know her mom is going to outlive me, so
There you
I'm
go.
not worried about that. She can do whatever she wants with her mom because I'll be gone. She comes from good stock.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's us, man.
That's who we are.
That's it.
Riveting.
Holy podcast.
Yeah.
We start this podcast up, and I'm like, what are we going to talk about? I'm sitting here, and I'm like, 45 minutes later.
Yeah, well, get on the riveting rabbit hole of our youth.
Oh man, that's it.
Yeah, no, but I again, I am excited, and I know we didn't want to go somewhere between here and an hour, so I am excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk about some other things. We're open. I mean, I'm open to suggestions in the comments
Oh yeah,
on
always.
YouTube anyway for topics you'd like to hear us talk about. But we do have a lot of different things to talk about. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, we've been brainstorming. I've been brainstorming a little bit, and again, we've made YouTube videos out of suggestions and comments. So
Yeah.
I am 100% sure. If you have something that you either want to discuss or want to hear what we feel or think about it or whatever it is, man, just kind of let us know, and I'll put it on the docket.
And we made a YouTube channel about motorcycles and beer because that's what we love. So I'm sure there'll be some discussions on that as well on here.
100%.
It's not like we're just gonna ditch that. That's part of us.
Nothing more American than a Harley,
And good beer,
and whiskey.
just not Bud Light.
Oh, so it begins.
No Bud Light.
All right. So, man, listen, thanks for checking out this episode of the podcast. You kind of hung in here all this time, all this 45 minutes. Welcome to tuning into. This is the first episode of This American Ride. And I'm George. I'm here with Bert. And that's about it. You got anything else?
No, that's it, man. That's the who, what, where, and why. And, moving forward, we'll actually start discussing
Stuff.
topics and not ourselves.
Hey, well, we might still talk about ourselves a little bit.
We will talk about ourselves a little bit because I'm sure you guys want to know. So feel free to ask whatever questions you want to ask, and maybe we'll answer them.
All right. See you guys later.
All right, later.